I'm Heba Elias.
And I'm Chevon Drew.
And welcome to Momentum, a Race Forward podcast, where we explore how racial justice work
is showing up everywhere around us. Hi, everyone. Dennis, how you doing?
Hi, Chevon. Still hitting my pandemic wall, waiting for my second vaccine. I am ready to be outside of my neighborhood, to be with my friends.
Well, I have some good news for you, even as you're indoors. This episode is the season finale of Momentum. We've been on from last September to now, and this is closing out the season. So you get to be my amazing co-host for the finale.
We did it. I haven't done a lot of things like this, being on a podcast, and just wanted to extend my appreciation to you, Chevon, our producers, Hendel and Kendi. Y'all have been so welcoming to the audience. You know, I've heard some feedback, and just thank you. It's been a pleasure to be in these last episodes of this season.
Well, speaking of the pandemic wall, when I hit it, I kind of just look for something to veg out with. Like, can I watch something on TV and relax? What about you?
I have watched so much TV, so many movies, and I was just actually thinking about the Oscars that happened last week. And, you know, especially with all the movements for racial justice that have happened in the past couple of years, these award shows and our people actually being recognized for their craft. You know, I've been thinking a lot about the power of storytelling and of art. And so, you know, for me, it's just the power of art and culture to advance racial justice is infinite.
I think it's powerful because I think that media has already advanced white supremacy. So I think it's clear that it's powerful. It can do a thing. It can do a job. It can program people. It can suggest things to people. It can enforce ideas or reinforce ideas. So I think as far as the power it may have to advance racial justice, I think it's infinite too. I'm with you on that. It excites me also because people are always changing and learning and growing. So even people in movement work who are maybe making art or cultural work to advance racial justice, I feel like they themselves are always growing.
For me, the power of arts and culture is to future cast, to define what is possible, you know, to see my humanity reflected so that I can continue in this fight. And I'm curious, what were some of those TV shows, those movies that moved you, that talked about race directly or indirectly?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think. I would say most recently, I watched Queen Sugar, which I've been watching for a while. I've watched Lovecraft Country recently. I feel like I love Lovecraft Country because of the depth that they brought into the story. I also enjoyed the conversation that some of these shows created. I definitely saw on social different conversations about the script writing, about colorism, even in the casting. Because even in a Black production, it doesn't mean that you can totally avoid the Hollywood system, so to speak, you know? So there's still critique to be levied, and it was levied with love. And, you know, just, I really appreciated it all. And then Queen Sugar, I saw the finale recently for the season, and I just felt uplifted by it because I think they tied up so many long-running storylines where they talk about Black families, and it's almost like trauma, like generational trauma, and how it can affect how you relate currently to your Black family members and to the world. And I really love the way they tied certain things up at the end. I felt like it left me feeling joyful and optimistic about the show and the show's continuation in the future.
Yeah, I loved Lovecraft Country too. You know, just to talk about just using science fiction as a vehicle to talk about the painful truths of our history. You know, I remember those scenes where they were driving through the countryside and, you know, that cop was right behind them and they only had until sundown to pass that county line or else that cop was going to, you know, do violence on them. So that was really freaking powerful.
Well, any other shows you want to talk about?
You know, one of them, I just talked about the Oscars, right? Minari had a huge win, Best Supporting Actress, Yoon Ya-jung. To see my parents in that reality, it was just so amazing. And to have it recognized at that stage was just really powerful. What else? What else? What else? So Minari, I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Shout out to Marvel. And Marvel has been pumping it out, right? And they just continue to astound me in the ways in which they're able to explore all of these themes. And, for this series, the theme of race and Blackness and America and the ways in which they just sort of woven that in. They didn't shy away from it. They confront it. They confront it head on. And so, the Falcon, who is a Black man, there is so many themes that come up around imposter syndrome, this internal tension of being a Black man and fighting for this country when this country has never fought for Black people. And yet, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's that internal contradiction and he has to make a choice, right? And so it was just really beautiful to see. They also talked about truth and reconciliation. We got to acknowledge our past. They talked about medical racism. It was just fucking beautiful. And I'm excited to see where the Marvel universe is going to take us next. And I'm just glad that they're not shying away from these themes because this is life, man. This is life. As writers' rooms are getting more diverse, more Black writers, Asian writers, Latinx writers, Indigenous writers. We need a lot more of that. And I'm just really happy to see all these shows just really telling these stories that haven't been told before or were just told really badly. Understatement of the year.
Yeah. And I think our producer has been watching Grey's Anatomy. So if they've been tackling race and Blackish, I think. So those are the honorable mentions. And shout out to our friendly orgs, like Color of Change and other organizations like that who are spending their time educating different writers' rooms. And they help people understand how you can weave narratives about race, into your television shows and films and things like that. That's part of their work. I love it. Baratunde Thurston is a writer, comedian, podcaster, and activist. He is an Emmy-nominated host who has worked for The Onion, produced for The Daily Show, advised the Obama White House, and wrote the New York Times bestseller, How to Be Black. Baratunde was born in Washington, D.C., and cleaned bathrooms to pay for his Harvard education, where he graduated with a degree in philosophy. Baratunde serves on the boards of Build and the Brooklyn Public Library. He's mostly invested in topics of race, technology, democracy, and climate. He is the executive producer and host of How to Citizen with Baratunde, which Apple named as one of its favorite podcasts of 2020. And he's the host of a new 6-part PBS series, America Outdoors, with Baratunde Thurston. I want to just welcome you and ask your permission to read the fun facts that our associate producer pulled off your website. There were just a couple about your ancestry. Can I read those too?
Permission granted to read things I forgot were on my website.
All right, some fun facts. With an ancestry that includes a great-grandfather who taught himself to read, a grandmother who was the first Black employee at the U.S. Supreme Court building, and a mother who took over radio stations in the name of Black liberation struggle, Baratunde has long been taught to question authority. Welcome, Baratunde Thurston.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. What a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Chevon. Thank you, Dennis.
Yes, welcome. Man, I feel like those fun facts. Matt, that story, your mother took over radio stations in the name of Black liberation. That is freaking amazing.
That's what she said. Maybe she just wanted to win that, call-in contest, but I'm pretty sure it was for the Black liberation thing.
I believe it. I believe your mom too.
I believe my mom too. Yes.
So you're using so many of your gifts. I feel like a lot of us have watched your career and you have many talents that you're using to make change in the world. I wonder if you can tell the audience what's the number one thing that you would want them to know about how you got here, and what inspiring words might you have for the generalist, multi-hyphenate, multi-talented creatives out there.
Here's my advice for the multi-hyphenate type persons. Don't let them call you unfocused. It's a gift. I was always someone who had multiple interests, even as a kid, especially as a kid, before they kind of clamp down your personality and your imagination and your hopes and your dreams. So before all that came, I wanted to try stuff. And I think we learn about ourselves by trying things, anything new, and we find out we don't like it. And if we find that we like multiple things, there can be a pressure to specialize, especially by folks who want us to succeed, because our success reflects something about them. It's not even really about us. It's well, you're good at baseball, so you're going to be in the baseball thing. See how much I know sports, the baseball thing. National Baseball League. Major League Baseball, ML. You know what? Let's leave all that in there. That's real. That's all. That's the good stuff. That's the authentic stuff where he doesn't know what he's talking about. Let's keep that part. But I think that there's something beautiful about being interested in multiple things, being able to see multiple perspectives because of that, or see multiple communities, or be a part of multiple communities. So even, I've been someone who's been a part of the stand-up comedy community and a part of the super tech geek community. They didn't naturally or popularly intermingle very much. But I did, I was popular inside of my head. So I'm like, everybody does this. I'm doing it. And what that allowed for was to bring part of each community to the other. And in one example, that literally led to me building a company around some of that premise years ago with people who were into tech stuff and into funny stuff. And let's make tech more funny and more human in the process. And so those spaces of combination are opportunities for creativity and for innovation. And so I've never been the best stand-up comic in the world. I'm pretty funny. I know how to tell a story. But yeah, I didn't specialize. I'm not slinging HBO specials. I'm not touring for millions of dollars around like stand-up comedy. But I'm bringing that comedy lens to like a political analysis and a technological capability and a curiosity and Blackness. And so the intersection, that's where all the fun stuff happens. It's the combination. As far as what has been most important to, can you rephrase that question for me again?
Yes. If you could tell the audience the most important thing that you want them to know about how you got here. So maybe something that we haven't heard or something you haven't thought about.
Okay. Here's something I've thought. It's something I can't prove, but it's something I know is true. How's that for a mystery setup? People who I've been unaware of have been my champion. That's how I got here. There should be plaques for like the silent advocates and certificates for the heroes we never hear from. And every once in a while, like a shooting star or a ghost or like an equitable economy, I get a glimpse that there's evidence that somebody hooked me up, right? They put in a word. They submitted my name to something, didn't even ask me. They forwarded an email. They put their name on something of mine and thus added value to the thing because their name meant way more than mine did. They let me in the room before I was ready. So they took a risk and allowed me to take a risk. My life is littered with evidence of these beings, these elder champion hero type people. I know it's been a big part of where I am. And I don't always know who to thank, but I know I didn't do this by myself. I'm not doing this by myself, and where I'm going, I cannot get there by myself.
Beautiful.
So yeah, thanks to the angels.
Yeah, we've all been carried here at this moment in our life by people we know, people behind the scenes, and we stand on the shoulders of giants. So I know that you have produced for The Daily Show, and I came to know you from the work that you did with The Onion. And I just wanted to know, especially as a Black man entering into the news entertainment space, what that experience was like for you as a Black person. Because I remember you were in that space when there weren't a lot of people that looked like you in that space.
No, I was special. What was it like as a Black person during my time at The Onion? Let me situate the time. I was at The Onion from 2007 to 2012 in New York City, in Soho neighborhood of New York City specifically. And the headline is, Black dude has great time at white dominated institution. To his surprise, ? There's a lot of subheadlines and a lot of stories. It's a newspaper's worth of experience that I had there. I think I found a compassionate group of people at The Onion specifically, very curious, pretty self-aware in terms of the limitations, and people trying to do things the right way, trying to do things better. And so it wasn't a battle zone, right? There are some places that I've worked, some experiences I've had, some school type experiences, and you're just like, let me put this armor on. Here we go again, wading in the water. And that wasn't like the day-to-day at The Onion. It was a fun place to work. And there were some really fun people to work with. And as a Black person at The Onion, I found myself highly utilized. I definitely, The Onion's premised in part on photography and a lot of these edited photoshops where you like put Obama in a Supreme Court robe, dressed as the Supremes, like some weird thing like that. And so you need like a Black person to do that. So I've been just a lot of Black people, because I was Like Brandon was there. You know, it was like Baratunde or Brandon. You know, it was the black, and our complexion was similar, so we were interchangeable. That was kind of fun. It's kind of a ridiculous thing to say, of course. Being there helped me merge some of my different types of consciousnesses. Like I have the blackness consciousness. I was there in partly a technology capacity and partly in a comedy capacity. And one of the greatest joys of being there was to play at all those at the same time. It's like, okay, how can I be black and techie? I'm getting paid. Can I be black and funny? Can I be funny and techie? Can I be black, funny, techie? All at the same time? Yeah. And to be there during the Obama time and during this time of, maybe this is like getting closer to some of the heart of the matter. I was at the Onion when in media, entertainment, news, all kind of the same, representations becoming more formally a big deal. It's always been a big deal. It's more recognized at this stage. And who's getting to tell what stories for whom? Who's getting paid? Who's not getting paid? Who gets a voice? And I was somewhat ironically at an organization whose personality, whose mythical, satirical history was nobody gets a voice, right? The Onion is this top-down, all-seeing, dominating, patronizing institution. The tagline of The Onion is tu stultus est, you are dumb. That's what The Onion says to its readers. That's part of the joke because it's channeling old media. And so I'm at a point of maximum velocity in change toward new media. I'm at a place to bring new media that is steeped in satirizing old media. There's no bylines at The Onion. Nobody gets credit for nothing, which oddly created a sense of freedom, right? Because I could weave in and out of all kinds of things. And I saw other people doing that. It allowed me to be positioned, and it's not really about what I did, but what I witnessed. As the mainstream media is going through all of its angst, it gave me a perch to witness all that from. And to be at The Onion at any time, you have to understand media, because that's what The Onion is satirizing more than any other institution. And to be there when media is going through all these tumultuous changes is to also go through those changes. So it gave me some empathy, but also like a deep awareness, like, yo, y'all are screwed, you know? And we're going to clown that too. So it was quite a gift. And there's probably a whole book length answer to that question. That was a real cool question. It's simple in its construct, but the nuances, the notes, it's like a fine layers.
The layers. So you did some of the videos at The Onion? Because I remember, man, some of the funniest ones were the ones where they spoofed the talking heads, the pundits, on a completely outrageous subject, like surviving a zombie apocalypse.
I wasn't on the video team. I was kind of on all these teams. Speaking of multi-hyphenate, I was like a multi-hyphenate within a single job. So I supported these teams. Like, how do we even put this stuff on the internet? Communicating it socially, like digitally with the audience. I'm giving notes on things because it was a very collaborative place to work where you had your job, but like everybody pitches jokes. Everybody can vote on content and jokes and what gets made within a certain lane of creative jobs there. And I'm sitting next to the designers as they're doing their thing. It's just like, it was definitely by far the best job I have ever had.
We didn't know who was writing what if there were no bylines, but now I'm going to go back and be like, which ones were you? Who was doing what?
One of the fun parts is, unless you're inside, you don't know. The number of things people assumed I wrote because I was Black, I had nothing to do with that, which is like a testament to a collaborative environment and an institutional persona. Being there, seeing the editing process, I know how these pieces can be. I'm like, oh, Todd Hanson definitely wrote that. Like, that's a Todd Hanson piece, right? But in the public, it's very hard to be able to pin that down. In part because you don't know the real people's names either.
That's true.
Yeah, so I got to do things that had nothing to do with race, which is also freeing and liberating. And there weren't a ton of like heinous flare-ups or incidents while I was there. So I was spared some of that, which is, also always nice.
The gift of anonymity. I think just like, now that I think about it, it's like if you had bylines on some of those, the type of flames you'd be getting on social media.
Yeah.
Especially Black people on social media get flamed all the time for speaking truth or even just doing satire,
They would know who to demand be fired. And now there's the solidarity of collective anonymity. Now they just want the whole thing to go out of business, which is harder.
I have a question about your tech experience. I worked in digital and in tech startups, and that's where I discovered, your work for myself. And that's a very interesting space, to be Black in. And I wonder what you think now. Like, I'm still, of course, connected to this community. I'm watching people discuss leadership and also staffers discussing, is it okay to talk about social justice issues at work? And is it okay to bring your true self to work or not? And I wonder if you can talk about what you thought then or what your experience was then, and maybe what you think about that question now.
Yeah, that is another fine wine of a question. I'm rating the questions. So fine wine is one, layer cake. That was the other one. Previously, I, like many Black people of a certain age, was like, nah, you go ahead with that bring your whole self to work thing, and it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing that anyone asked for. It was like you bring your work self to work and you get your work done. And where it did come up that there was a benefit to bringing something a little extra, that felt like an opportunity for exclusion or discrimination. So, the choice of the activities that the company's going to do, the bar we're going to go to, how we're going to socialize. There's so many assumptions built up in that, and so much shared language amongst a certain set of people that when you're not from that group, an invitation can feel like an exclusion. Come with us to this thing at this place that you're going to feel massively uncomfortable at. You really want me there? That doesn't meet the spirit of the word invitation. Then, there's been certainly a transition of we got to bring more of ourselves to work. And I think as that started to grow, I was like, that sounds cool, right? That sounds more. We're full human beings. We're not just worker bees and drones. Like, we've got feelings. We bleed. We're people. Not that we should be bleeding at work. Like, something may be going wrong if that's happening. You should seek medical attention, cuts and stuff. But I was talking to my wife, actually, and she shared a perspective of that I hadn't fully thought through until she said it. And it was like asking people to bring their full selves to work can be an exploitative thing, can create a voyeurism. And, we're talking racially. It's like a white company telling Black people to bring your whole selves to work and be vulnerable. And we want to hear it. She's like, yeah, tell me about your pain. Tell me about your struggles. Like, can you sing the blues for me? It starts to get into this Blaxploitation-y vibe and this extractive imbalance vibe where people who haven't had certain experiences and know that those experiences are valuable are demanding to hear about those experiences and not acknowledging the cost of speaking those experiences out loud. And so bring yourself to work to a Black person means educate white people in the most exhausting way possible, which is with your personal story. And the more I thought about that, thank you, Elizabeth, the more I'm like, yo, that's very true. We got to be careful with this. And so I do a lot of talks to companies because they want to hit up a Black person to make them feel better. I'm like, I will take your money to scream at you. And I caution them about this whole thing. And most of them have never thought about it this way, not consciously. Rarely a conscious choice, but it can create a weird, and the Black employees, I can see them, especially lately on the Zoom, where they'll DM me like, bro, thank you so much. I can't tell you how tired I am. Like, I actually don't want to be a Black activist at work. I got to be a Black activist on the way to work to protect myself. I got to be a Black activist at my kids' school to advocate for that. I just want the check, bro. I just want to do a good job. I don't want to be disrespected, and I don't want to be exploited in my demand for respect. It's nuanced. It's hard.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I learned something else recently. I was doing my own podcast, this How to Citizen show, and we had on a guest who works with a lot of people who are poor, all below the poverty line, public housing or affordable housing residents in the South, largely single Black women, mothers. And the way she was sharing their stories, it felt different from what I heard before. She didn't go into a ton of detail. She's very selective. And we were talking about it. She's like, yeah, I get permission to tell people stuff because that's their business. And it's not my story to tell. And I think what also happens in this bring your whole self to work phase is these are fun little party tidbits for people to share, or painful ones. But then they can be like, well, my friend Deshaun said, and it's like, did you get a release from Deshaun? Does Deshaun know you're talking about all this stuff, and for what purpose? Hearing it for yourself and wrestling with it and embodying it and thinking about it, confronting yourself with it is one thing, but just leveraging it for points in a meeting with your in-law who's with a Black person, that ain't it. That ain't it. So We got to be very careful how we handle people's stories too, even if they choose to share them with us.
Thank you. And I think Dennis had a podcasting question.
Oh, well, I mean, you talked about it, How to Citizen, and congratulations on season 2. Snaps and claps, snaps and claps. Yeah. And you've already interviewed so many of my favorite people: Heather McGhee, Astra Taylor, Saru Jayaraman, and even Esther freaking Perel. I've been listening to her for relationship advice. Can you tell us a little bit about this podcast and what are some of the big lessons you're learning?
So this podcast is called How to Citizen with Baratunde. And we live at howtocitizen.com because I can never say enough. And so just click a link, find it in your podcast place, do the thing. It is a show that interprets this word citizen as a verb, as something we do rather than a place we're born, something that's accessible to all. We can all do something. We can all choose where we're born and under what paperwork status, but we can choose to participate in building the society around us. We can choose to invest in relationships with other people so we don't feel so alone, and we can better act collectively. We can choose to understand the power that we have well beyond voting to shape the world, to shape our world. And that could be a very small world, right? That could be our block. That could be Earth, maybe even the Milky Way, because we're stretching our wings a little bit as humans. So, and we can do all this to benefit the many and not the few, because doing it just for self is not in the interest of all of us. The benefits don't accrue to all of us. The thesis of the show is those things. It's like, show up, work with other people, know your power, do it for the many, not the few. And why do I care about that? One, I'm a nerd, and I'm just like a democracy nerd. And I like people, and I want the best for us. I want the best from us, and I think we can do better. Many of us are lonely. We have been raised in a system which profits off of our isolation, algorithmically, economically, culturally, racially, splitting us apart. And to think powerfully together with others is one of the greatest gifts that we have. It's one of our key features as a species, is that we can operate with others. We can coordinate our stuff and do things that no one alone could do. So having a show to explore all those things was the goal. Having a show that told good stories of things we're doing, not just nightmare garbage fires from the news, was the goal. And learning, being a member of society, like being a part of something with other people, is not easy. And it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like, okay, I voted, now I'm done. So it can feel underwhelming at the same time. And I wanted to explore everything in between. What could that look like? So, we gathered some dope people. You named many of them. There are so many more to help show us what that looks like. How can we show up? Because I'm tired of just being angry about how messed up things are. That's definitely not the whole story.
I hear that. Like one of the themes I've been picking up listening to your podcast is like, I mean, you named it, right? Like there's the powerlessness, there's the cynicism, and then we also got to hold the hope too. And I'm still thinking about January 6th and like the juxtaposition of like those white nationalists, that guy in that fur hat almost taking over our capital. And at the same time, we also elected our first Jewish and Black senator from the state of Georgia, thanks to Black organizers in that state. Talk about powerlessness and hope,
So increasingly, I'm starting to think of feeling powerless as an intentional strategy by people who hoard power to weaken the many of us. And I'm so close to being clear about this. There's a model of the world which says that people who have power, they don't want you to have power, so they make it hard for you to have power. And that's kind of true. But the greatest trick by people with power to reserve it just for the few of themselves, the greatest trick they played isn't the successful hoarding of the power. It's the successfully convincing the rest of us that they have power. That's like some Kaiser Soze shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's epic gaslighting. That's a mind trick. Because if we're all running around this framework that there are people with power and people without power, that they have the power and we got to fight for the power or fight the power. I love some of these chants, but it got me a little twisted up because now I'm out here trying to take something from someone else, maybe do to them what they've done to me. That's like a vengeance exercise. Or I'm thinking there's something about me which explains why I don't have power. It's a worthlessness, a self-lovelessness of myself. Maybe I don't deserve it. And so I got to create a whole nother story to explain why I don't have power. Versus, Oh, I am powerful. I am powerful. Ah, that feels way better to say than look at all those people with power over there that I got to convince to give me some. No. So we are all powerful. And in a democracy, that's literal. It's in the name, right? So it's people power. And it's up to us to choose to exercise it, to understand it, to wield it for our purposes. That's our job. You have one job. This is it. This is it. Feel your power, know your power, use your power. And of course, there are truly people and institutions in the world who have successfully gathered a good amount of power. You can measure it. It's measured in dollars. It's measured in like energy units. It's measured in Bitcoin. It's measured in legislative signatures and laws passed in favor of who or what interest. But that's all temporary stuff. The consent of the governed, that's us. The will of the people, that's us. And we manufacture all this stuff that we believe so much in, like dollars, like race, gender. And we clearly can change all that stuff. That's in our power. So it's very liberating. It's a little overwhelming because it gets a little philosophical, but I also feel like it's like the core of the matter because I think there's something very seductive, simplistic, and underserving about the notion that there are people with power and people without power. And I think that story tends to serve the people who we think of as having power.
Power comes in so many different forms. You know, our president at Race Forward, he says, and he may have gotten this from somebody else, power is the ability to shape reality. And you can do that with political power. You talked about that. Narrative power, the narratives we tell ourselves about our value and our worth, all of that. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm learning. I'm learning. The beauty of this show is like, I didn't like walk into this show with all this knowledge or insight or perspective or information. I walked in with some thoughts, maybe several, maybe many. Okay, hella thoughts, but then also a lot of questions. And we brought in these people and we have our producers, and we being me and my wife, Elizabeth, who's also an executive producer, are like, oh, where can we go next? You know, so the season that we're in now is a bit more focused. It's all about economic power and how we citizen with our money. It has opened some doors that I'm just learning a ton of stuff.
So one of the other things, I've been listening to your podcast. I also took a listen to your 2018 TED Talk. Hey, and that was 2018. That was 3 years ago.
Wait, you talking about the headline one?
The headline one.
2019.
Mm-hmm. That was 2019. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I just found it really resonant. Like you talked about your experience being pulled over. You talked about how white people, quote, weaponize their discomfort, which I thought was just a brilliant way to talk about it. And, I think about 2019 to today and all the shit that happened in these years, right? It was only 2 years, but it just feels like a decade of shit. And so, I'm wondering if you think back on that talk that you gave, where we are now. And I'm just curious, like, how is this landing for you? How are you revisiting that? What's changed? How do we address weaponized discomfort?
Yeah, weaponized discomfort. I'm real proud of that one. Thank you for noticing. In that talk specifically, white people, largely white women, calling the cops on Black people who they felt that didn't belong. And that behavior continues. One of the interesting alignments of the summer of 2020 is Memorial Day, this day we're literally supposed to remember because it's in the name. And that May 25th is globally famous, probably for the rest of all time, for the day that Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, which we can legally say now, which I've been saying since May 30th or so. It's also the day that Amy Cooper called the cops on Christian Cooper. It's the same day. It's like, what kind of poetic, weird... Who's writing this show? And, by the time she did that, we all know what that phone call means, right? There's no excuse anymore. And I was still learning about that day because, within the past few months of this recording right now, further reporting came out about her behavior that day. And not only did she do everything we saw in the video, I'm going to call the cops, tell them you're trying to threaten my life and the life of my dog, dragged a poor dog into it, which is definitely not a racist dog. I mean, it's a dog. After she safely exited the part from this threatening bird watcher, she called the cops again. I was like, you really wanted him dead, huh? Like, damn, man. So that hurts. And I'm like, did she not see my TED Talk? You know what I'm saying? I put this whole thing together for the Amy Coopers of the world. And then I also remember that one of the key goals that I had with that talk, that was a very consciously constructed bit of storytelling. more so than most things I've done, especially for the length. The one slide, I'm talking about my wife a lot. She's very important to how I also learn and grow. But she saw me working on this thing. And I had the talk nailed like the first time I did it. I thought, I was like, I'm going to crush this, whatever, it's fine. I don't need coaching on my TED Talk. I'm a public speaker, is what I do. I got the comedy thing. I know how to make slides because of the tech. I'm good at keynote. Lock this up. And I had this opportunity presented to me to define the term white supremacy. I got a piece of feedback from like an outside viewer who was really not happy with that language. Not happy. That language is going to turn people off. You're going to lose people. Baratunde, you have the potential. You're so inviting. You're so charming. White people listen to you. You go throwing this word around, you're going to shut down a lot of folks who could pay attention. And I didn't like that at all. I was like, first of all, this is my talk. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Second of all, this whole thing is about white people being uncomfortable. Like I can't be pulling punches. But I didn't shut it down, in part because Elizabeth is like, look, if you can do one thing in this talk, you can define this term and make it approachable. So people know what folks are referring to when they say it, what you're referring to when you say it. Just define it. And so I added a slide. I was like, I'm not going to cut it. I think cutting it is cutting out truth. So cutting it is lying. So I'm not going to lie in my TED Talk and attribute this behavior to just random bad apple type stuff. No. There's a system underneath all this. But system was the key. And white supremacy as a system, which we designed and inherited and passed on through generations, which privileges some people, white people, over others in political, economic, cultural, and other ways, that's what it is. And I said in the talk, and I'll say it every opportunity, I'm not just talking about Nazis and white power activists. I'm not saying every white person is an active racist. I'm saying that we've all inherited this system that explicitly, legally, financially, like on paper, reserves certain rights and privileges for certain people at the expense of other people. That's just the truth. And if we can't say that, we're never going to move forward because we're going to be lying. We cut out that truth, we're lying. So that was important. And it's a long way of coming back to like reflecting on that talk 2 years later. As you and I are in this conversation right now, it is the day after the joint address to Congress by President Joseph R. Biden. And I already am feeling the chills because I listened to this speech by this old white dude, the old white dude who co-authored the 1994 crime bill, the old white dude who was very excited to tell stories of his black friends back in the day, of popcorn and peacock and all kinds of other fun things. The old white dude who helped disregard and disrespect Anita Hill. And he was making this speech and the boy was just crushing it. I mean, I thought he was doing an extraordinary job. And he starts talking about threats, nuclear threats, terrorist threats, North Korea, Iran, putting you on notice, blah, blah, blah. And he's doing that chest puffy thing that American presidents always feel the need to do, which is like threaten other people and declare that we will not accept any threats from those people toward our people. And I thought as I'm hearing him do this big old wind up, I'm like, yeah, but when's he going to talk about the threat of white supremacy? And Joe Biden pivoted from Iran to the threat of domestic white supremacy. He said the words. An old white dude president of the United States of America on one of the biggest stages he will ever have said white supremacy, said it's a bigger threat than all these people we've gone to war with and spent trillions of dollars on in forever wars. That's what we call them. And he said, yes, but our intelligence people agree, come to consensus that our greatest threat is white supremacy. So we have moved forward because he spoke a truth that historically speaking, the leaders of this nation are too afraid to say, especially in those terms. If they talk about it, it's over here in like the race conversation. It's over here in the criminal justice conversation. It's over here in a conversation about lynching or school lunches or something. It's not right next to $1 trillion wars. It doesn't sit next to North Korea and Iran and nuclear annihilation. So I feel some sense of, okay, something's happening. We didn't fix the whole thing. We're not going to fix the whole thing, but we're moving. And I was proud and I was emotional because that is an uncommon occurrence.
Thank you for that. You mentioned your wife is an executive producer whom you learn much from. So I have an art versus commerce kind of question. What cautionary advice do you have for creators of color about ownership and the business part of creating? And I know we're getting close to time. So if you want to consolidate it to give them the best gem.
Well, the thing about gems is you don't always know where the best ones are until you start digging. Metaphors. All right. I mean, look, ownership, own your shit. That's the t-shirt version. Here's what I'd say. It's many, many things. Understand the business that you are in. There's a lot of temptation and rush to create things, to produce things, to put stuff out there, to say yes to anybody who says yes to you. Read the fine print. If you're going into publishing, understand the business of publishing. Going into podcasting, understand the business of podcasting. I'm still learning. Y'all are too, probably. But climb that curve as fast as possible. Because especially for creators of color, this economy that we are a part of is built on exploitation of us and of our creativity. That's normal. That's the standard operating procedure. Those are standard terms and conditions, is theft. So don't be complicit in your own exploitation, in your own robbery. Don't rob yourself. Don't make it easy for somebody else to rob you. And it's a lesson I'm still learning. I don't have a huge, this person was secretly stealing from me type story. But every decision is an opportunity to exercise, strengthen, or dilute your power. And so there's also virtue in patience. And it may literally be a harder road for a while. But then if you own your stuff, it's worth it. Tyler Perry is a role model in this regard. Hustling, grinding, owning his stuff forever, ignoring the standard terms and conditions because they didn't work for him, being laughed at by almost everybody who thought they were somebody, including me at times. Oh, there goes Tyler Perry doing that Tyler Perry thing. That's not for me. And now this dude out here got so much money. So, if you're in the creative field in this digital space, property matters, intellectual property matters. And whatever you're creating, own as much of it as you can. It is not always possible to own it outright. Trust me, if you sign a deal to make a TV show, that studio, they own the show. That's just how it works. Is there another way to make it work differently? Can you carve out a little something for yourself? Can you limit the creep into this, that, and the other? Because with the world that's coming, you're going to be able to do so much with the things you own. You flip it in reverse. You can NFT it. You can blockchain that joint. You can monetize in this and that where you can collaborate with people. And if you don't own the stuff you make, then you're at the whim of someone else's choices about what to do with you. And that's not freedom, unfortunately. So what I'm describing is not easy. I don't own 100% of everything I do either. So point of truth and vulnerability, but that orientation is what matters, not the absolute achievement of 100% of every bit of it. Own your shit.
Gems, gems, gems. So Baratunde, could you let us know any future projects that we should know about? Writing, I know you are finishing up your podcast. What else is in the works for you?
We're already cooking up what season 3 of How to Citizen with Baratunde will be. We're trying not to take as long a break between the seasons. So fingers crossed. And writing wise, yeah-ish. So I've got my email list. I've been rocking some form of an email list since 1995, truly. And I'm just consistent as I can be with it. People can find that at baratunde.com because what I'm up to is always changing. I am making a television show with public broadcasting, PBS, here in the U.S. And we filmed the first episode. It's called America Outdoors with Baratunde Thurston. That's so cool. I'm going to have my name in a TV show. I'll be out in these woods, running around. It's very cool to break free of screens and walls. It's very cool to be Black and outside, be Black and free, almost literally, and represent a journey, a set of stories that's exploring people's relationships with each other through the outdoors and their relationship with the outdoors. Real cool show. We will have a non-typical set of faces and voices reflecting America outdoors, which I'm excited to be a part of bringing that to. Again, this is about that multi-hyphenate thing. It's like, I'm going to bring my Black ass to the outdoors and how we make this show. That's so cool. And they're so excited about it, which is great. It's like they know who they hired. Sometimes you're like, surprise, activist in the rope. But they're like, no, bring it, use it. We can use all of that. That's super exciting. I'm up to some other things. They're either not real enough yet, so I don't want to jinx them. But there's other types of stories that I'm working on. There's always other media that I'm exploring because I can't sit still. I'm clubhousing, text messaging. I'm NFTing maybe. I just like playing. It's fun for me to just keep growing, keep learning. I learn a whole thing and then that thing is no longer relevant, or I get curious about the next thing. One of those, sometimes both happen. So I'm excited to announce that I will continue learning and continue exploring. And yeah, just find me at that Baratunde.com if you want more details, because I might not even know them this second.
Awesome. So we've got the website. People should sign up for your email list. Can you also give folks your social media before you leave us today?
Yeah, I can. The most social media I can give you is my phone number.
Whoa.
202-894-8844. This is a text message number. But I got your attention, didn't I? Yeah. People are like,
you got me.
Writing that down. It's a public number. It's a community number. But I really like using it. People sign up. They tell me a little bit about themselves, when they're born, where they're living at, what they're interested in about me. And so the messages I can send out are one-on-one sometimes, or they're one-to-many, but it's like a subset. So it's not just like a blast Twitter. It's like, oh, I know you're into the podcast. So I just send podcast stuff to people who've self-identified as interested in that. So that number is 202-894-8844. When you text in, just say Race Forwards. I know how you found me. You can also find me on other people's plantations. I'm on the Zuckerberg plantation at /facebook.com/Baratunde, Instagram.com/Baratunde. I'm on China's plantation at TikTok. You can find me at Baratunde, working out over there. And I'm on another one. Oh yeah, Jack Dorsey's plantation. I'm on Twitter, of course. So I'm Baratunde in all the places. You can find me. If it's easier for you, I'll meet you there.
Thank you so much. I am so excited that phone number will not wake you up at night, but that you can respond directly. Yes. I was like jumping in, like, don't do it, bro, don't do it. But I love that.
Trying to save me from myself.
Yes, it's like very Ryan Leslie of you.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said Ryan's name. So Ryan is the innovator here. Ryan is the first person I knew to come up with that through his Superphone service. I was hanging with Ryan. We went to college together. He's a year or two ahead of me at Harvard. And this dude, super smart, super innovative. And I remember when he was building it. That's how like throwback I was with Superphone. So Superphone was the first version of this I used. I'm still using the concept. I'm on a different platform. It's Community is what it's called. But it's the same idea. So I appreciate you saying his name. Because I usually try to say it every time, and I didn't do it this time. So thank you for the opportunity to give credit to innovators of color.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ryan Leslie. Let's get him on here too. I love what he does in tech and entertainment and all that. And I'm giving away clearly that I freelance in entertainment. Baratunde, this has been amazing. All your multi-hyphenate self that you brought to this interview. I want to thank you so much. Dennis, parting words?
Yes. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. Can't wait to listen to the rest of the podcast and stay in tune for all the other shit that you're going to be doing too. The good shit.
Other shit.
I was just telling Hendel, I was like, Hendel, our producer, was like, Dennis, be yourself. And I'm like, I curse a lot. So here it is.
Yes. The realness. This has been a real pleasure. Y'all are fun. Chevon, Dennis, great questions. Fine wine, layer cake. I ran out of food analogies, so I'll just say this is really dope.
So it's the end of season 2. Oh my freaking God. Celebration time, Dennis.
And thank you to our lovely producers, Hendel and Kendi. Thank you so much.
Yes, and celebration kisses going out to Hiba, who is my co-host, who is not here right now because she's on sabbatical, but you should celebrate with us. I know it's probably Ramadan, so just like the next iftar, have an extra plate and it'll be me and Dennis celebrating with you. Dennis, I want to thank you also for co-hosting. Hiba will be back at the start of season 3, and Dennis, you have held it down. I love it. And on that note, I want to just pause for the cause because, Dennis, there's some special news that I saw today, and I wonder if you'll tell the audience.
Yeah, I can share this. So I'm transitioning to a new role in Race Forward, and on May 1st, I officially start as the Vice President of Narrative Arts and Culture here.
Woo!
And I am really excited. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Very excited for you. And congratulations. Woo! We've got so much going on to celebrate. Also, for the audience, I want you to know that we've been building on our Race and work, which, it was originally a video series that talked about the intersections of identities and how oppression works alongside that. And I want to let everyone know that we have a youth event coming up, meaning it's for everyone, but it centers youth and their solutions for racial justice. So please check us out. We're at raceand.raceforward.org, and the event is called Race and Our Present, Our Future. It's going to be a youth-oriented virtual event that will take place September 25th. Registration is officially open and more information will come. So check it out, raceand.raceforward.org.
All right, and I get to do the closer for the first time. So you can visit Race Forward's website for all the latest updates and statements, www.raceforward.org. You can also visit us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @RaceForward. And please rate and subscribe to us. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We are on Pandora.
Woo! Thank you, Dennis.
All right. Season 2, it's a wrap.
Thank y'all for tuning in.